Hey, infinite beings. Welcome back to the Infinite Me, where
Hello.
we're talking all about being infinite, how to live infinitely, how to embrace it, and the fact that you're already infinite. You don't need to go out and find your infiniteness. So I'm Nat, and over there, I did get it right. Over there's Mandy. She's
Hello.
over in Tasmania. She's in Tasmania. I should be going like that because she's in Tasmania in Australia, and I'm in Paris. So you're down under.
Yeah.
So yesterday we had an interesting chat about nothing. Actually, it was all about nothing. so if you really liked what we said about nothing, then please like the video. Yeah, we showed up. We didn't have any topic to talk about yesterday. We realized that there was actually nothing coming up that we wanted to really talk about necessarily. Unlike most days, we
forcing it.
Yeah, most days we sort of choose a topic and we run with it. It's all unscripted. We just basically talk in the flow, but we do have a starting point. Yesterday we had no starting point, and so we talked about nothing. And it was a bit like a Seinfeld episode. Yeah, we talked about the power of the nothingness, which basically is your infiniteness anyway. So it was actually pretty cool in the end. We actually managed to talk for 15 minutes about nothing. So that was pretty cool.
Well, the concept when nothing's coming up, that it's okay. We don't need to force something to happen in the moment.
Yeah, it was actually really good. I think we made some really good points actually yesterday, and it was probably really powerful in the end, strangely. So let's see if we can get as powerful today. Today we're going to be talking about the story. So I guess over the last month or so, we've been talking about being infinite and the fact that the storyline and your reality basically is not real, and you're actually creating it all. It's basically a projection of your consciousness. But it is important to really acknowledge the story itself and not just discount it. So today we want to have a little dive into that aspect as well, because there definitely can be a point at which you go, oh, it's just all story and I don't need to worry about it. And that's actually not the point either. So do you want to kick off, Man? Because you were sort of talking about this earlier to me, and I think you had some really good points.
Yeah, just sort of saying that the like coming from what we've been sharing about, if we are an infinite being expressing through this human body, then we're here to sort of play out our story. So we're writing our story as we go. We're creating everything in front of us. So there is a storyline that plays out. You know, like I live in Australia. You know, I have blonde hair. I married. You know, all the sort of things that happen in my storyline that I've created. But then you can kind of get into this consciousness kind of work, and then you hear this concept of that it's all made up, like if we're an infinite being that is just a figment of our imagination, if you like it is literally just that. But it looks like we're here in physical form. We can get really attached to those stories when we're attached to the physical form. So you can have these two things kind of going on about, well, it is just all a story, and that's ultimately true as well. But then we are here to play a human game. So the story is actually quite important to our journey as well. Like we don't have to do anything, but it's sort of, we are living a story like while we're here. So so then I guess that dilemma comes in a little bit when you start on this journey about kind of saying to yourself, and I've definitely done this for myself, where you say, oh, well, it is just a story, and it sort of dismisses everything that's kind of going on sometimes, where you don't actually then get to see the power that you've put into the story, which is the kind of the thing that's sort of holding it all in place, like that holds the ego in place, if you like. The story and putting the power and the feelings into that and thinking it's real is what gives the ego its power. So to sort of then say the truth of, well, it is just a story, that is ultimately the truth, but you actually miss that kind of opportunity to take your power back out of those stories, to sit with that story and see what it actually has to show you, like what's the feelings that are underneath that story. So take out the details of the story, because that's not really relevant so much. It's more, how is it making you feel? That's the thing that's usually coming up in the story that sometimes we don't see, because we get so attached to the actual, you know, minutiae of the story playing out, you know, what's actually happening.
It's what just sparked for me then was thinking about the concept of different levels of truth. So at one level of truth, at the human level, we have a storyline. We are playing out generally it's the hero's journey, like it is in any movie type thing, and where you go along, you have your challenges and you have your wins, and then you might go back into challenges again and you have your wins. So at that human level, we definitely have a story playing out. We're here, we've got relationships going on, we've got jobs, we've got money, we've got all these different aspects of our storyline, and we encounter different things as we go along that storyline. So at that human level, that we have a story. When you go to that deeper level of truth, we're infinite beings as well. That's also true. So where there is no story playing out, it actually is just all done in consciousness, and it's projections of what's going on for you as part of your consciousness is what you're reflecting and seeing in the outside world and reality, because that's how reality is created. So that's another level of truth. So I guess it's sort of which level of truth do you want to play at, because they're both true. So in that way, it is about not dismissing the human storyline that goes on, because I think there is lots of there's lots of enjoyment in it as well. Like that's the whole thing, is that the human storyline should actually be really fun. When you come from it from an infinite space, and you're sort of, I guess this whole concept that we've probably all heard before is about that witnessing type thing. So rather than being in the storyline and being so subjected to everything, like or vulnerable to everything, so everything affects you. You know, what your parents say, what your boss says, what money is in your bank account, you have this loss, you have this failure, all these different things are really impacting us. And so that's somebody that's actually in the storyline themselves type thing. Like they haven't realized that, how can you put it, like that you're an actor in your story. So you're not in the story, you're actually playing a story. So
like it's not happening it's not happening to you, it's happening
to you. Because of you.
You're create.
The whole thing is because of you, not with you, sort of thing. Like it's I guess like an actor is probably the best way to explain it type thing, is like an actor doesn't read the script and go, oh god, this is actually my life. The actor is fully aware that it's a script and that they're taking on a character role for that period of time, and they play the script. People come and go from their storyline. There is a storyline, and at the end of it, that's it. And that's pretty much, I guess, what's happening here to sort of thing. So you're not sort of actually in the storyline, not realizing that, oh, I'm an actor in my movie type thing. So I'm actually just reading a script. So is everybody else. We're just acting out stuff here. So, but that storyline is important, just like any movie. When you go to watch a movie, if there was no storyline and nothing was happening, like we were just sort of sitting around, everyone was just sitting around type thing, like it'd be a rather boring movie. So, or if everything was going really good in that movie, you know, that main character, everything went really smoothly for them all the time. Like they had fantastic relationships, they had as much money as they wanted, they just sort of created whatever they wanted, and sort of get to the end and go, okay, interesting movie, but it didn't really grab me that much. So I guess that's where we have been talking in previous times, is that storyline ups and downs actually is what creates the enjoyment factor for both watching it and also participating in it. So the story does become important, because not only is there lots of sort of lessons, I suppose. I don't think we're here necessarily to learn lessons. I don't particularly subscribe to that myself, but I think there's awakenings and things that you can become aware of along the journey, and that your story gives you those things.
I'd say
and
more
I certainly
into taking your power back out of the story. It doesn't run you. It's you know yourself as the infinite being, just being in that storyline rather than the story running you, like, and you're reacting to what's happening in the story. But it also provides the enjoyment. Like it's what we're here to do. We came here to have a storyline, to get excited about it, to have all the ups and downs and all the feelings and the emotions and all the different things, just like an actor has in a movie. And then somebody watching that movie also feels the same thing. So, you know, you do sit back, you think about different movies, good movies, that get you to feel so many different emotions in a whole range, a whole arc of things in that storyline. Like it's so engaging. You come out and you go, oh my God, that was one of the most amazing movies, because you've just been taken on such a journey with it.
And it's like, that's your storyline. That's exactly what's happening in real life too.
Yeah. And I suppose that is the actual point, isn't it, of the, like, if you take the scenario of a movie, that is the whole point of the movie, is to go on an emotional journey, to be taken on that journey and to feel those emotions and experience them in your body. And yeah, so I'm just thinking in terms of, that's where I guess that story kind of comes in. Are you getting a little bit of a repeat, or is that just me?
No.
Okay, might be just mine. That's all right. Yeah, so I was just thinking, well, that's kind of the whole point of the story, like we're saying, in terms of feeling the story, because it's so easy to kind of say, like, say you have a relationship breakup, it's so easy to kind of go, well, I should just move on, like, just, you know, pull yourself together and move on to the next, you know, start dating again, or just forget about that and let it go. But that's sort of almost saying, well, the story doesn't matter, like, but that's actually, well, that's actually what keeps you in the story half the time, because you can't move on if you actually haven't really processed the feelings or the emotions that have been generated by that story. So if you try to just keep pushing it away and say, I'll just get on with it, just, you know, get on with it, but you haven't actually acknowledged that, okay, well, actually I felt really hurt by that, or I'm really sad, and actually just sitting with that feeling, and probably not even labeling it, I guess, as sad or hurt or making that good or bad. It's just feeling that emotion for what it is in your body. Then it can actually move through you, and that's how you take your power back out of that story. So rather than that story still running you, of like just going, oh, well, that happened to me and that really hurt, and still having like reaction to it on some level, you can take your power back out of that story. So that's why sometimes it is important to look at the actual story and not just dismiss it as, oh, well, that was just a story, and move on, because you still actually have the power tied up in it. That's the ego keeps getting its identity from that. So
yeah, and I guess that makes that pattern repeat, that storyline repeat. It's sort of like, if you still got your power within that storyline, and it might be a relationship, they're always the hard, you know, one of the hardest ones, and money, I guess, are the two really, and health, you know, I guess they're the really prime drivers of humans here, sort of thing, that their struggle. But, you know, taking the example of a relationship, I was just talking to a friend the other day, sort of thing, and she started to look, when she looked back over her relationship, she said, oh, I've actually had the same sort of guy in my life every time. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And it's like, there's still things to get out of that. Like, there was stuff to awaken to from those relationships that perhaps haven't been processed yet, those different feelings that person made you feel, betrayal, or I felt like nothing, or I got treated really badly, or whatever those sort of circumstances are, or the emotions that come up from those circumstances, of like feeling like not in your power, giving your power away to somebody else, and then going, oh, okay, that's there showing up for me to actually take my power back. So, you know, I guess this comes back to that whole duality thing we were talking about a couple of days ago. It's sort of like, if someone puts you in the pit and they think that they're better than you, then at some point you'll get so sick of that you'll go, you know what, and you'll start fighting back. And that's what happens, is that people will only take being shot down sort of thing for so long, and then they will start taking their power back. And that's the whole idea of it. That's why it happens. So that we can come back into balance and go, no, I'm actually just as powerful as you are. Not more so, not less. We're all as powerful as each other, because we're all infinite beings at the end of the day. So not actually taking things lying down in relationships, and not making yourself to be better than anyone else. So when you can get back into balance, then you don't have to keep repeating those same patterns all the time, the same person that you go out with. You can actually be with someone on the same level as them and go, you know what, we're actually equals with each other. And so we're going to walk side by side, not I'm better than you, or you're better than me, and I'm going to lead you, or you're going to lead me. We'll just be here to support each other. Like, I'm with you, not that I need you. I'm with you because I really enjoy being with you. That's it.
You choose to be because you love to do that. Yeah, that's the feeling.
Yeah, I guess that's where that whole scenario comes in, is when you don't have power in the story, you can do stuff because you love to do it. Like, that's a really good point, man. Like, it's like, you have money because you love to have money. You have a relationship because you love to have a relationship. You don't need it, because you realize that your whole power comes from your infiniteness, not from anything in the storyline.
Yes.
But I guess it's through the storyline that we actually realize that we
Yes.
start to
Yeah.
wake up to
To
our
experience that.
infiniteness. Yeah, it's almost like all the, I guess the way it's set up with the duality and all that sort of stuff is that constant balancing act that goes on universally type thing for all of us. We all experience it. Is that the storyline is the very thing that's actually awakening you to your infiniteness if you pay attention to it.
Yes.
And it's doing it in so many different ways, isn't it? Like it's showing you signs all over the place. We've talked about that in different lives as well, where, you know, you'll see somebody's T-shirt and there's the exact message that you need, or a street sign, or there's so many different things. Or somebody says something to you, like they're all signs pointing you back to the truth of your infiniteness. And your relationships are the same thing. Like if you're feeling really shitty in your relationship, it's trying to get you to wake up. To take your power back out of that relationship, and then ask, do I want to be in that relationship? Like, not I have to be in that relationship.
Yes.
Or your job. You go to work because you enjoy it, not because you have to be your money. That's your only source of money, because it's not.
Yes. Yeah. I was just thinking when you're talking about the I just remembered an analogy I heard the other day, which was really interesting, kind of representing, I guess, this story and how we get attached, how the ego kind of attaches into the story, because that whole point that you're making about the positive and the negative, and that's what happens in duality and that's where the ego plays out. It always plays out in that negative, positive aspects, gets attached to that, whereas the power is in that neutrality, the balance point, bringing it back into the center. So this analogy I heard was around, imagine you have like a helium balloon in front of you, so it's in line with your face, and so when something like happens to you, like that, you feel like you've been pushed down, say, like you feel like you've given your power away to somebody, say in a relationship, so it feels like the balloon's been punched down, so like the helium balloon goes down, and that's you down in the pit sort of thing, experiencing that. But then, you know, the helium balloon rises back up again to that same level, and so that's like the analogy of like, oh, that's me taking my power back and me coming back up, but it always comes back to that same level, and then you'll find a way to punch it back down again. So that's what the ego does, is that constant push, you know, like the balloon rises back up, you push it back down again, and then when it rises, it goes down, and then as it rises back up to that you know, height again, that's like when we go, oh wow, yeah, look at that, I took my power back. Like that's the ego kind of saying that. So thought that was a really cool analogy, to kind of saying that that's the game we play, like we in our storyline, when we do get attached to the story being real, and that we are real in this body, and we forget that we're an infinite energy coming through this body. But then in that story, it's kind of important to say, okay, well, what is it about that story that's happening, rather than getting caught in the detail? It's like, what is the thing that's coming up for me to see? So if you did have like a repeating pattern, like you said, in a relationship, it might be go, wow, I always have this I always have this perception that people are controlling me, or it always feels like people just take advantage of me, and I just sort of give in to what they say all the time. And so you might go, oh, okay, wow, that's really interesting. Like, and okay, I put my power into someone having more authority than me, and identifying, you know, as that person separate to you, and they're not the same as you. They don't have the same infinite energy, or you're not an infinite being. So you see it as outside of you all the time. So that's where we say about taking the power back. It's like telling the truth that, well, no, I'm an infinite being, and this is an expression in my story for me to have an experience, so where I can see that I've identified with the human form, and it isn't who I truly am. I am this infinite being, sort of animating this and playing out this in the storyline, rather than that storyline being me. Like, I'm not the story. I'm just playing a character in the story.
And I think that comes back to what we were touching on the other day. It's like using the different emotions as part of your storyline to express yourself. So if you get angry, you're not an angry person, sort of thing. You're actually using anger to express yourself in that storyline at that time, and it doesn't matter. All the emotions are exactly the same as each other. They're like zero neutrality, and they're yours to express with. So if you sort of look at emotions that way, you're not going to get caught in going, or judging all of them and going, oh, I shouldn't be angry, I shouldn't be depressed right now, I shouldn't be this, I shouldn't be that. Like there's just so many things that go on in our minds all the time of like, I should be this, I should be more happy, I should be less this, I should be more something else. And it's like, what if they were just all neutral and you started looking at them as if they're just expressions? Like use them. Use them to your ability. I don't mean to hurt people if you're going to get angry all the time and stuff like, but I think if you put in neutral energy into those things and you're just using them, like for example, Jodie and I, you know, like I'll let go at times where I'll really fly off the handle about something, but it's almost like instead of being in the storyline and being really angry, I'm actually stepped outside of it and I'm using anger at that time because it's the only thing that actually feels right for me to do. It feels true for me to express that way and get really aggro about something. But it's almost like there's zero attachment to it from either of us, sort of thing. Like it blows over so quickly because she doesn't take it personally because it almost was just an expressive thing at the time. There was no, it wasn't aimed at her personally, sort of thing. Like sometimes it's necessary to use something like anger that's got such an explosive energy to it. Like if you think of emotions just as energy now, then sometimes that forceful, explosive type energy actually is really important because it's the only way that you can get through to somebody and express what you want to say. So, but then it just falls away. It's a bit like animals. It sort of reminds me of pets and animals and stuff that have this tussle, a really explosive energy, or they go at each other, locking horns and stuff, and literally within a minute it's just completely forgotten about and they're back being friends again. Like it's like nothing ever happened. But again, they just need to let something out. And maybe that's all that's happening in our storyline with emotions is they just need to come out. Like let them out.
Yeah. I think it's when the ego gets involved in it, like, isn't it what you said? Like it's different if the ego was the one expressing the anger, and it would be very like justified. It would be trying to justify to itself that I'm right in expressing this anger, and that person did that to me and caused this reaction in me, and that's where the anger comes from. So that's when it feels like it's well, I guess that's when the feeling hangs around, I guess, like not like what you said, it doesn't just fall away. It's not just an expression. It's like you usually then create a memory around that, and then you know collect evidence around why you should have been angry and why you're justified in being angry, and
it's quite personal to the other person.
Yes,
like it's at somebody.
I usually take it
doing wrong by you.
True.
So there's that judgment in the first place that somebody did something to you that you didn't agree with, and so you're reacting to that now. But in actual fact, the truth is they didn't do anything to you. You created the whole scene that just took place. So there is no blame, you know, there is no credit and there's no blame in any circumstance.
It's almost like, I guess, that emotions just become like a tool, like another tool in your tool, or not even a tool, it's probably more like a toy in your sandbox that you can play with. Like it's kind of like you can pull it out to use at any point in time when it suits the storyline to or that feeling is coming through you, and you express it as that, but without attaching a meaning to it or an identity to it. It's just an expression moving through your body.
It sort of reminds me a bit of sports and stuff like that. Like there's two teams competing against each other and stuff like that. Really full on, you know, if you're talking about football particularly and those sorts of contact sports, like they are really hard-hitting, full-on sports. For that 90 minutes, it's like crazy, you know, they're at each other like they're the worst enemies in the world type thing. As soon as the whistle blows, that's it, they're best of friends again. Like, you know, they all know each other outside, they go to the pub, they do this, they do that. You know, it's sort of quite crazy. It's sort of letting that thing go. And when I was in VIP protection in the police, I would often see this in politics, so that they go head to head in Parliament and all this stuff, like just crazy shit that they carry on with. And then as soon as they got out, you actually wouldn't believe it, they're also just friends with each other. Like that, all the parties just got on with each other and joked around and all this sort of stuff. It was just like it's so funny. Like it's all just a show. The whole thing is just a show. Just like any sports game, it's just a show. You know, you've got to have that competitive spark, I guess, at stages type thing, because it suits. But then it is just that. It's just a game or a show.
It was like a debate. Just that reminds me of like debating saying say at school, where
Yeah.
you got split into teams, and someone had the for for a particular argument, and someone had the against argument, but there was no sort of you're just divided randomly into a team, and then you had to come up with an argument to sort of support that case, for whichever side you were on. So it's almost like, well, that is just a game and a story you can make up in the moment, because I could have quite easily been put on the other side and had to come up with the counter argument to that same thing. And so it is, I guess, a little bit the same. Like, if you don't have the power invested in if that wasn't like my political stance on that, where I'm really passionate and an activist around something, where you really attach your identity to an issue. There's nothing wrong with being, an activist about something that you truly believe in, if it's coming from this space of you just have a pure love for that particular topic and you feel really passionate. But it's when you actually start attaching that to your identity and making that actually mean something about you, and they're wrong and everything they're doing is wrong. So it's the same like in a debate. If you really buy into that story, you can make it start to mean something about the other person that's debating you back, like in politics or something like that. Whereas it is just it's just a way of expressing to get a certain outcome, or to get a certain point across, or to advance a project, or when we're not attached to the outcome, then we can use the expressions to, as they move through our body, and let them out and express, and then let them just move in the direction they want to go, rather than it being used as a like a weapon, I guess, if you like, to kind of advance your particular story that you're attached to, because it's attached to your identity and you're making it mean something about you. Kind of that fine, it is sort of a fine line between the two. That's where it can get a little bit tricky, like on this journey, as we sort of said, because the ego gets really clever, because that whole thing I was saying about, like, the ego can kind of make it look like, oh, I should just move on from this story, and that sounds like, oh the story's not real. It's just like, but that's the ego saying that's not real. That's where you have to kind of have a bit of discernment sometimes around that voice that's coming in, or noticing whether it's a voice in your head versus the feeling in your body. That's usually when you can tell the difference between, like, if it is like, if you're in the story, like you're really attaching to the story, or it is just a storyline that you're acting out, and that that's the truth of it, that you're an infinite being just expressing in a storyline right now. It's not running you.
I was just thinking that it is hard to navigate at times. Like, you're back in the story before you even realize it. Like, it's so quick. And it happens to all of us. Like, no matter how much work of this stuff you've done, it's actually really difficult at times. And I guess the stories that you buy back into quickly and easily are the ones that are important to you. So things like your relationship and money, things
we still have power. I think that you still really have power in, like, that are those sort of survival type things, like money, will buy you. You'll jump back into the money story so quickly, and buy back into limitation, because it's to do with your survival. Your mind believes that that's your job, or the work that you're doing is the money. That's where the money comes from. So because we've been so trained with that, then I guess they're the sort of stories that become really difficult for people to actually step outside of and go, okay, this just is a story. Like, it's not actually real. And your relationship, you're close to your partner type thing. Like, it's sometimes they're your life, so when they say something or they do something, you are automatically back in that story with them, buying back into all the feelings and the hurt and the anger, but it's all personal. It's not just expressing yourself, it's actually personal again. But it is difficult to separate yourself sometimes, because they are important stories too. And those things are usually the ones that are showing you where you still have a lot of power invested in that identity that you have built up around that relationship, say, for example. So it's still like a need running it, like, on some level. So it's not just coming from this pure space of, I love to be with this person, I know I'm an infinite being and they're a part of me, and they're an aspect of my infiniteness. But when you see it as separate, then you do get really caught into that story, and you need, like, the ego needs to have that relationship and make it mean something. And
Yeah.
yeah, like you said, it does feel like survival, because that's what it does feel like to the ego. It is survival. Yeah, exactly that. So it does feel like it runs you, and it is hard to pull yourself away sometimes from those stories when they do play out, when those are the things that are really kind of, in your storyline, you've made them have a lot of power for you. You've put a lot of energy into them. So you get a lot of, opportunities to kind of see where you're doing that all the time. Like, so that's where the I'm going to say challenge is not the right word. It's kind of, that's where the invitation is, I guess, to kind of see it, like the things that keep coming up all the time, or the things that really push your buttons all the time, or the stories that just kind of really, pull you back in at the drop of a hat. They're the ones to kind of really start stepping back from and kind of going, well, what is this feeling beneath that? Like, what is it? What am I believing about this that's making me feel separate and powerless? And that's where you've got all the energy invested in. The more you can take that back and see yourself as the infinite, then those things don't run you anymore, and you get to just enjoy them. Like, they actually become just an expression and something you get to enjoy the relationship and build money or not have money. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Then it becomes just part of the game. Yeah. Play with it.
I like what you said about the invitation. Like, every part of the story, I guess, is an invitation to take your power back. Like, if you feel like you've brought back into the story again, it is an invitation from your infinite self to take it back if you want. You don't have to. You can make a choice in every moment about what you do. But definitely, if you want your storyline to change on a particular thing, then take that invitation, because that's the very thing that will change. You can't change the outside world, like we keep talking about, in terms of whatever's manifested already. In reality, can't be changed. It has to be recreated into a brand new thing, brand new scenario. And the only way that can happen is through consciousness changing. So taking those invitations when the storyline presents of like, oh, I've seen this before. Oh, yes, I've been through this whole storyline before. Like, it's almost like deja vu. Here we go again. And it's like, okay, stop for a moment. Okay, why is this showing up again? What's going on? What haven't I looked at? What's more? There's more stuff to look at. That's cool. So there you go. So storyline is important. It is, but it isn't. There you go. There's no real answer to anything.
Another paradox, as usual.
Usual paradox. Be in the story, but don't. Like the story, but don't.
It does get a little bit confusing at times. That's the that's why I guess it is important to have help on your journey sometimes, because you do get so caught into the story and seeing it as yourself, and sometimes it does take another aspect of yourself that you've put there to kind of reflect that back to you, to see that sometimes. So it is really helpful to
that was going to be my conclusion too, is like, it's really hard for all of us. Like, no matter how much work you've done yourself, you will always find yourself back in a story of some description somewhere along the way, and you can only have support on it from somebody that's on the outside of that story, who's not attached to it, not personally involved, to go, you know what, you've just brought back into the story again, and that's cool, but you've got the opportunity right now, because you've just been made aware of it, to actually not be in the story and to learn from it, or to awaken, from different things. So it's like, having support along your journey definitely becomes really important, for that reason.
If you want to step more into that infinite space, then it speeds up your journey, I guess. So it's not that you can't do things on your own, because you ultimately can, but it's more fun to kind of have people on your journey, I think, anyway, to help.
Well, then you can laugh about it instead of being so serious.
And then you get to play more with that infinite space. Like, the more that you keep getting reminders of that, you get invited back into stepping back into that space of being the infinite energy that's animating it all and creating it all, and you do get to just play with the creation rather than feel like you're a victim of the creation. That you don't have a say in it.
I like that. Very cool. Well, there you go.
There's something today, nothing. So
we told you a story today instead of just nothing. Very cool. Well, if you
let us know.
today. Yeah, let us know. Where do you buy into your story still? Like, what still holds its daggers in you? Is it money? Is it your relationship? Is it health? They're usually the three big ones.
Very big ones, yeah.
Yeah. Where is it? Your family, perhaps, friends. Where is it that you've still got your power and that you do buy back into the story and you sort of feel like you're in it rather than just observing it and having fun with it?
Yes.
Let us know in the comments. And I think it's important to let us know in the comments, because this is where people start to, from your answers and your comments and commentary, people get to learn. So it's not just from us, but we're all learning from each other then. It's like, oh, yeah, I've got my power back in there as well.
Yes.
So you're helping other people awaken as well on their journey to infiniteness and realizing they're already infinite.
Yes.
By making your comments and stuff. That's why it is really important that we share this stuff.
Yes.
So, and give us a little like or a thumbs up or a love heart if you really loved it.
We really appreciate it. Because we need love in our story, so please love us.
Yes, because Mandy and I are not loved enough. So give us some love.
No, it's fun. Well, thanks
Very
for joining
cool.
us, and we shall see you again tomorrow.
We will. That's 1 month done. All of July is now done.
That is true, yeah. Yes, very true.
Wow. There you go. We made a month. How exciting. That's very cool. That's a big thing in our storyline. So sticking to this every single day for a month. So yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool actually. Yes.
Hey.
Yes.
Yeah. Go team.
Dear. Well, thanks for being part of our journey. And helping us make 30 days.
Yep.
Hopefully you'll join us tomorrow for day 31. So,
for the start of month 2.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Awesome.
All righty.
Enjoy your day.
All righty. Stay infinite.